Lockout. The lockout killed the 2004-2005 season. So let's award that Stanley Cup. I'm going to try it, and I haven't. This is just a dry run, and I've never tried to figure this out. Let's have fun with this. So, Anaheim's first on the list. They're given a C+ in here by the Hockey News. This was the only book I had for that season. And they were coming off a year where they had 76 points, and the rookies weren't sensational. They didn't have Pronger. I'll give Anaheim the X. Anaheim wouldn't have won the cup that year. Atlanta, with a Winnipeg logo, because I don't have Atlanta with a magnet. They had 78 points. This is Atlanta. They were perceived to be on their way up. Not a Stanley Cup contender. The Bruins shift gears after loss to Habs. Joe Thornton, Patrice Bergeron, Nick Boynton. Bergeron was going into his second year. Thornton was getting better. In net, they had Andrew Raycroft. Buffalo. Low expectations for same old team. Given a C-. They had 85 points, though. I mean, the point totals were there. They didn't have Ryan Miller yet. And yeah, they just didn't have a great team. So I'll go ahead and I'll take Buffalo. I'll put Buffalo out of there too. Calgary. Well, Calgary got to the Cup final in 2004. I'll put a question mark down there. Maybe they would have won it. I'll come back to Calgary. Carolina. Plenty of potential. Budget is low. 76 points. Nah, I don't think Carolina would have got it either. Chicago. As good as they are now, they were that bad then. So no. Colorado. Avalanche stopped by lack of scoring. They also had Abbotsford as their starter and Philippe Sauvé as their backup. Budaj was coming up. He was in Hershey. Wojtek Volsky was coming in. Mark Svatos was coming in. I love that name, Svatos. But, yeah, goal scoring is an issue. And yet, I'll give Colorado a question mark. So we'll come back to Colorado. Columbus. No, they hadn't been in the league very long, and they weren't very good at that point. I mean, right here, Rick Nash just looks like, why am I doing this all by myself? He had 41 goals and 16 assists that year. Like, you could pass it to who? Forget it. I'm doing it all by myself. We're doing it live. And high-priced stars lacking in identity. Fistrick coming in, 97-point team. They were 11th overall. I'll put a question mark because they did have a Stanley Cup not that long before that. Detroit? Sure, we'll come back to Detroit. So you see, we're building contenders. They're all in the West so far because Detroit was in the West back then. Oilers? Yeah, no. Not that year. Florida. You know, even with Luongo, no. L.A. Roman Cechmanek. Well, that tells me what I need to know. Good goalie, not in the playoffs. Minnesota. No, they weren't a cup contender at that stage. Let's look at Montreal. Habs looking good on Julian's watch. There's Jose Theodore. Back-to-back strong seasons. Good playoff. Yeah, I'll put Montreal with a question mark. There you go. Who says I'm not fair? Nashville? No. They got a B- on here and blah, blah, blah. But they were not a contender. Devils. Devils had 100 points the year before. Yeah, I'll put them as a maybe. Islanders. Nah. Because it says here, it's Islanders' turn for Yashin Bashin. Yeah, Yashin. That's what you need to know. Yashin. It's the Rangers. They're rebuilding. Yeah, no. Very high-priced team. Senators. A-grade team, 102 points for 6th place. We'll put a question mark for Ottawa. Maybe. Philly. Good things come in hitches year 3s. Well, there is somewhere I'm going with this. Coyotes. They were Phoenix back then. Remember, I've got the book to prove. Phoenix Coyotes. That's why they're sitting where they are alphabetically. Don't get mad, Arizona fans. Pittsburgh. Younger, are they better? No. Absolutely not. They got Malkin, but that was before they got Crosby. Blues, B-, Pronger. See, this magazine has St. Louis alphabetically ahead of San Jose. Happens. No. No for St. Louis. San Jose, onward and upward. Stanley Cup threat. Sure. Question mark for them. Tampa? Yep. Notice I haven't picked a champion, because I'm going somewhere with this. Toronto, time to be rebuild? Never in Toronto. Yeah, that was number 1 draft pick, Justin Pogge. Oh, boy. Yeah, and then Carlo Kaliakovo, Alex Steen, Michael Telquist, Pierre Hedin, Stefan Kronval, Kyle Wellwood, Brendan Bell, Jay Harrison, Ian White, John Mitchell. That's quite the list. 103 points. They were 5th. I believe Belfour was still their goalie, so for Belfour's sake and for Sundin's, I'll make him a question mark. Vancouver, B+, teams on fast track. They were tied for 7th in the league. And their goalie was still Cloutier. So, no. I just... And I loved Cloutier as a regular season goalie, but I can't see him going on a run. Colzing and the kids looking to rebuild. So Washington's a no. And I'm going to pause and fix this. Alright, so here are the 10. The 10 that I identified as maybe. Calgary, you got Kiprasov in net. Colorado, you got Abbotsford in net. Dallas, you got Turco. Detroit, you got Joseph. Montreal's got Theodore. Berder's in New Jersey. Ottawa's got Hasek. Ashes in Philly. Nabokov in San Jose. Habibulin in Tampa. Belfour in Toronto. Starting goaltenders are important. And anybody who says, goaltending really doesn't matter doesn't know what they're talking about. So, and yes, that's my honest opinion. Because goaltending always makes a difference in the playoffs. There are times where you don't have to be a stellar, fantastic goalie, but for the most part, your goaltending has to be very good. So, Kiprasov's an argument for. Abbotsford's not. Abbotsford had a decent season before the lockout, but he had a low shelf life. And I can't see him going through 4 rounds. Turco for me, I love Turco. I do. But he had bad luck in the playoffs. They would have run into Dallas or Detroit in the first round. Cujo had a bad run in Detroit, but I'm not going to erase him. Because I really think he could have had that run in this season. Jose Theodore was at the top of his game for 2 years, and I think that would have continued this season. Marty Berder, I'm not going to touch him. Dominic Hasek, fantastic. Robert Esch in Philly. Nabokov, good goaltender. Habibulin had just won a Stanley Cup, and Ed Belfour is one of the best. So it's not too bad. I didn't erase very much there, did I? Calgary, their top tandem on the blue line, or at least top 2 blue liners at that point were Regier and Leopold. Calgary's blue line was hardworking, not as offensively talented as you want in a Stanley Cup champion. Colorado, Blake and Foote on the blue line. That's pretty good. Dallas, Zubov and Boucher. Boucher's iffy, but Zubov's good enough that I'll leave it there. Because there's other things with Dallas for me to talk about. Detroit, Lidstrom, and Darian Hatcher's listed as number 2, but technically Chelios was... But, again, this is a pretty damn good defense. Montreal, Surrey, and Brisebois. Surrey had a really good blast of a shot from the point. Brisebois was okay. But for me, I'm going to take that defense out of there. New Jersey, Niedermayer and Stevens. I'm not touching that. Ottawa, Redden and Chara. Not touching that. Philly, Janssen and Desjardins. It's becoming obvious here that I don't view Philly as being a strong contender for this Stanley Cup, despite them having had a really good season. San Jose, Rathje and Hannon. This shows that this is before the salary cap era. And while Mike Rathje was a good physical defenseman, not a top guy. Tampa, Sarich and Boyle, their defense was good. They had a lot of good defensemen. It wasn't great, but they had won the Cup the year before. Toronto, McCabe and an aging Brian Leetch. Yeah, I'll leave Toronto with that. Okay, Calgary's top stars, Iginla. Not touching him. Sakic in Colorado, getting older, not touching him. Dallas, they didn't really have a top star at this point. Was it Bill Guerin? Well, I love Guerin. Played for both Dallas and Boston, but no. Detroit had a young Pavel Datsyuk coming into his own. He was becoming their best player. Montreal had Saku Koivu, and as much as I like Koivu, he did tend to get injured a lot. So Koivu comes off there for me. New Jersey had Eliash. Ottawa, Hossa, Alfie, and there's Spezza. There's a lot of guys who could technically be the top guy. Philly had Roenick, who was, and I went over this roster over and over again, and Roenick's probably their best forward. You could argue John LeClair, but again, not really up there. San Jose had a young Patrick Marleau. I'm going to take Marleau out because Marleau only became a really good playoff performer the last few years. Really. Only good, consistent playoff performer. Tampa was St. Louis. Toronto was Sundin. We're good. So, pluses and minuses. Calgary has a plus of their work ethic. A minus is their offense. Colorado, plus is their defense. Minus, they were having problems scoring goals at this point. Forsberg's getting injured a lot. Dallas, their plus is depth. Their minus, Modano's really starting to fall off a cliff. I'm going to have to go ahead and declare the first team I pull out of this contenders list is Dallas. Not going to do it. Plus for Detroit is depth. Minus, maybe that they're not physical, but that happened before and they won a Stanley Cup. Plus for Montreal, speed and goaltending. Minus, size. It's hard to project Montreal winning a Stanley Cup with Jose Theodore, and I've already taken out their forwards, their defense. So for me, Montreal's the next one to come off the board. So we're down to 8. New Jersey, plus depth and balance, minus maybe toughness, because they'd lost Arnott and Holik. San Jose. Ottawa, plus is depth, minus intensity. That was always the thing with Ottawa, was are they intense enough to do anything in the playoffs, because they always seem to lose to a more determined Toronto team, or whoever happened to come along that was just a little tougher than they were. Philly, their plus was their power play, and their depth, their minus, goaltending. I'm going to go ahead and pull Philly off the board. I'm going to say Philly's out, so we're down to 7. San Jose, plus, goaltending, special teams, minus. They didn't really have the leadership at this point. They didn't really have a veteran presence. I know it's weird because you see Marleau and you think veteran presence, right? So I'm going to have to pull San Jose off the board. And I hope they forgive me. I hope San Jose fans forgive me. I really do. Tampa, focus and team are their plus. The minus is their depth. It would have been really hard for Tampa to repeat. So I'm going to keep that in mind and keep going. Toronto, experience and depth. Their minus was they were an old team. They were an old team. Let's go back up here. So the Flames, Kiprusoff, again, long work ethic, their minus offense. They'd been in the Stanley Cup final the year before. They'd been not one of the top-ranked teams in the league. So I'm going to be really brutally honest here. Calgary's coming out. Calgary makes the playoffs, scares people, but likely doesn't get back. Colorado, their defense is great. Their offense is going to hurt them. Abbotsford in net's going to hurt them. Sakic's still good, but he's not as good as he was when they were winning cups, and Colorado's out. So we're down to 5. Detroit. Curtis Joseph, Lidstrom, Hatcher, Chelios, Datsuk. Depth. Yeah, we'll leave Detroit on the board. Jersey. Brodeur, Niedermeyer, and Stevens. Eliash, depth, balance, and toughness. The minus and the toughness. Yeah, we'll leave them on the board. Ottawa. Hasek in net. Remember, this was the lost season for Ottawa fans. Depth, intensity, I'll leave them on the board. You get to Tampa, and here's the thing. So you've got a contender in New Jersey, contender in Ottawa, contender in Toronto. Tampa's got depth issues. The odds of them going through a season unhurt. The odds of Habby Bullen putting together another performance like that, not great. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Tampa does not repeat in 2005. That their lack of depth and an injury or two takes them out. So we're down to 4 teams. And 3 of them are out of the East. And technically all 4 of them are Eastern teams now. Detroit was in the West at that time. Belfour, McCabe, Leach, Sundin. Experience and depth. Age is an issue in Toronto. Come playoff time, Brian Leach is going to be tired. Brian McCabe is not really a top 2 defenseman. He's more of a 3-4 guy. And Belfour is getting to that point in his career where he needs to play less starts. Sundin's a beast. Yeah, they probably get to the quarterfinals, maybe the semifinals, meaning conference finals for you kids in the crowd. But I don't see Toronto winning it. I don't see 1967, then 2005, and then however they're going to win with Austin Matthews. So we're down to 3. Detroit, New Jersey, or Ottawa. It is hard to foresee Redden and Chara, as good as they were, beating Niedermeyer and Stevens. Niedermeyer would go on and win a Stanley Cup with Anaheim. Eliash is at his best. Brodeur is arguably at his peak. And they'd won a Stanley Cup 2 years earlier. So they'd be hungry. For that reason, I'm pulling out Ottawa. Even though Dominic Hasek likely would have done all of the things you have to do to win a Stanley Cup. There's my Stanley Cup final. New Jersey and Detroit. And Detroit's like, oh, great. The problem for Detroit is they've got Lidstrom, Hatcher, Chelios, and so on. Nicholas Kronwall's not ready yet to be that guy that he's going to be. Datsuk is only in his second, third year. They have depth. Their physicality is an issue. Did I mention New Jersey still has Scott Stevens? So your 2005 Stanley Cup champions, with their 4th Stanley Cup, the New Jersey Devils. There you go. My non-scientific way of trying to figure out who would have won the Stanley Cup in 2005. Tomorrow we will continue looking at Stanley Cup champions with 2006, which was won by the Carolina Hurricanes. But for 2005, New Jersey fans rejoice. You win the Stanley Cup. Because of depth, balance, Stevens, Niedermeyer, Eliash up front, Brodeur in net. No really discernible weaknesses in that lineup. Saying that they lack toughness, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't win a Stanley Cup. And saying you lack toughness when Niedermeyer and Stevens is your top 2 on the blue line, that's a bit of a misnomer. And it's probably not entirely accurate, because there was a lot of really damn good players in New Jersey. Let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below. Apologize for the length, but this just took so long because you got 30 teams. You got to pare it down to one. Let me know your pick in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and thank you so much for watching. That's it for me for now.